Over the next 4 days, the Court of Appeal is hearing an appeal from the government. The government is seeking to overturn the Constitutional Court's ruling which struck down the second extension of the tenure of Paula Llewellyn as the Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, today was day one in the appellate court, and the lawyers representing the government, now they've described the Constitutional Court's ruling in very strong language. They say it is absurd and totally inconsistent. That was the rebuke issued by King's Counsel Allan Wood as he made his arguments this morning in the Court of Appeal.
I heard it, and I got a similar sentiment, reaction to it. Very strong words there from King's Counsel Allan Wood, who urged the appeal judges, listeners and viewers, to reject the ruling and accept that Lewellyn's extension was lawfully enacted. Here's more of this report from Norgay Banton.
Justices Sonia Wint Blair, Simone Wolfe Rees, and Tricia Hutchinson Shelley had struck down the second extension of Paula Llewellyn's tenure in April. The judges found the extension unconstitutional, null, void, and of no legal effect. The unanimous lower court reasoned that by passing the amendment, the Holness administration conferred a power on Paula Llewellyn that was never contemplated by the drafters of Jamaica's constitution. The judges held that the framers of the Constitution did not empower the holder of the office of DPP, who they describe as a public servant, to decide the terms and conditions of service or on retirement from office. But Allan Wood is having none of it. On Monday, he told Justices Straw, Harris, and Lang that the ruling issued in April contained totally inconsistent reasoning, had made a fundamental error, and amounted to a legal absurdity. Wood told the three judges of appeal that he made those observations with what he describes as all due respect. According to Wood, once the Constitutional Court had found that the constitutional amendment increasing the retirement age of the DPP and the Auditor General was validly enacted into law, that should have been the end of the matter. He says the lower court should have rejected the constitutional challenge filed by the PNP's Philip Paulwell and Peter Bunting. The King's Counsel says it is logically inconsistent to hold that the first section of the amendment was lawful, but then rule that the second part could not be legally applied to Paula Llewellyn's tenure in office. He noted that the lower court committed a legal error in determining that the amendment did not extend Ms. Llewellyn's tenure. Wood said if the courts were to uphold the amendment, but then look at what was obtained before the amendment in deciding what was lawful, the law would be in a realm he said he could not possibly describe. Paula Llewellyn listened to the arguments intently, occasionally nodding her head in agreement with the arguments being advanced for her continuation in office as the country's chief prosecutor. The Attorney General is being represented by the law firm Livingston, Alexander and Levy. King's Counsels Allan Wood and Ransford Braham are leading the team on behalf of the government. Paula Llewellyn has been granted leave to appear in the matter as an interested party. She's represented by former Solicitor General Douglas Lays. The PNP is being represented by the law firm Hilton Powell, with former Solicitor General King's Counsel Michael Hilton as their lead counsel. The hearing continues at 9:30 Tuesday morning.
Thanks, Nora. Now, of course, Douglas Lays, the former Solicitor General, is also himself a King's Counsel. And, Tyrone, it was interesting in court because this is a very different panel from the panel we saw presiding at the cartel appeal, where in the cartel appeal we sort of got an idea of what the judges were thinking, how they were receiving the arguments. Not so in this case. The judges posed questions, very few questions, but the questions were, I would say, balanced. And so you didn't get a sense of how they were thinking about it. But at points, Allan Wood seemed almost incredulous, when he was describing what the Constitutional Court had done, almost impatient when he was dismissing the argumentation that we got from the Constitutional Court. And I was careful to watch Paula Llewellyn's reactions. She's a very expressive woman. and you could see her nodding vigorously at points, smiling broadly at points to suggest that, yes, I agree.
This is not a question of the strength of the legal argument, Ricardo. It's a question of the business model is perhaps not the terminology I'm reaching for, but is it wise to attack the bench like that when you're asking other members of the bench to rule in your favor? What did you make of any of the judges?
So I think he carefully danced through the raindrops. He made it clear that he was offering observations, he said, and then he made sure to say, with all due respect. And he was careful, I think, to contain the criticism strictly to the reasoning laid down on paper. Not necessarily saying I'm going after the judges, but just that I think, he was saying, on this matter, it was faulty, and you really shouldn't, as an appellate court, uphold this. But this is just day one. It goes on until Friday, and of course, King's Counsel Hilton is to respond on behalf of the People's National Party, and then we'll also hear from Douglas Lays on behalf of Paula Llewellyn. So just day one, so we'll see how it goes.
Massive ruling, though, when it comes, Ricardo. Can I tell you, I'm hearing his argument about consistency in the ruling.
Yes.
And I'm no lawyer, but in listening to the ruling and looking at what was written in terms of reports on it as well, one could ask questions about consistency in terms of the ruling.
It is a very strong argument because it doesn't just on the plain face of it doesn't follow. And he made that point very clearly, that the judges will say, we accept that this is a validly enacted constitutional amendment, but then when it comes to Section 2, we strike it down as unconstitutional. It cannot apply to Paula Llewellyn. He really struggled to explain that. He said it is inconsistent. It's an absurdity, he said. And he told the court not to accept it.
And as a non-legal mind, I'm just looking on. I'm saying that argument has some amount of weight in my mind as a non-legal person in terms of the application of the consistency of the ruling. How do you accept the amended legislation but not the application of it, right? But it would be, I think it's a massive ruling that the country should look forward to, and hopefully we'll hear from the learned people on the bench at the Court of Appeal, learned judges at the Court of Appeal soon on this one. But I'm really looking forward to this ruling.
Right, and just finally before we go to the break, and at the point where he was making that argument, the judges at one point stopped him, conferred silently, sort of vigorously arguing among themselves, and then separated again. So we don't know what they make of it, because they didn't, as was the case, say in the cartel appeal, where we could get a sense of how they were thinking about the argument.
Based on the line of questioning.
Right, they consulted a lot, quietly, together, and then allowed it to continue. Yeah,
interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. And of course, we hope this matter is settled with some amount of dispatch. The country needs to have a full Director of Public Prosecutions, too critical an office, yeah?
Indeed, and it is on an expedited schedule. I recall this was the original ruling came down in April, and they're now hearing arguments. So they have expedited it.
Wonderful.
Yeah,